Well, imagine this. Just days before crucial local elections in Germany, seven members of the German right-wing AfD party suddenly dropped dead. Of course, German authorities say these are just coincidental, non-criminal deaths. It was 6 before our show, but the 7th just dropped dead and confirmed before our show started. Sure, the country, of course, is reeling from this. Ballots now have to be reprinted, but don't worry, no foul play at all, nothing to see here, just a freak fatality streak against a party that would otherwise seal their wide-open borders. End the madness in Ukraine. Turn on energy again in the country, flip on those nuclear reactors, stop the crazy green boondoggle of putting up windmills and destroying your country. This is like an anti-globalist party. Now, let's take a look at the list of those who have been reported dead and what the official explanations are. Most recently the 7th, we can confirm. No official explanation for this, but if you look at the list of the others, one was reported suicide, the rest are sudden, unexpected, and contributed to natural causes. Is it natural to die suddenly and unexpected if you have no pre-existing conditions and you're not of advanced age? I guess in the CO era, yeah, it could just happen and we won't ever investigate it. But yeah, so now Naomi Seip is an independent journalist and political commentator from Germany who's joining us to try to make sense of what's happening in her country. I'm going to say this right out of the gate, Naomi. I don't believe in coincidences. 7 AfD party candidates wind up dead before an election. I smell a rat here. Is that kind of the sentiment sweeping across Germany, or am I a nut job?
I truly feel like something is very off, and the legacy media obviously just jumped to the conclusion that we're just forming conspiracy theories here. But I mean, it's 7 AfD candidates within the span of like a few weeks. Something is very off here. And then, even though they claim there have been some pre-existing conditions, for example, some of these AfD candidates were a little bit older, like 60 plus, but still 7 almost at once. And then maybe you can say, okay, they had like a little bit of an unhealthy lifestyle. Okay, so if I maybe eat 1 Big Mac today and then I drop dead tomorrow, that means I had a pre-existing condition and I was living like an unhealthy lifestyle. Something is wrong. And the funny thing is that during the CO times, they never cared about any pre-existing conditions. And I would even argue that these 7 AfD candidates suddenly dying is way more unexpected than what we saw how they were abusing these CO death statistics.
Right, and so can you tell us were these popular candidates because we have reported on the growing popularity of the AfD? The media calls them far-right extremists. I would call them more centric right-wing. So do you think that these people were headed for a win?
They were definitely headed for a win. However, they were not like, extremely popular in the public eye. But I think nobody would dare to right now eliminate somebody like Alice Vital, for example. Although we do know that Alice Ver has received many death threats before, there have been instances when she had to cancel events because she was concerned in the entire AfD party. They were concerned that somebody was going to try to blow up the event, for example. And so it's honestly, there are many reasons why you could argue that it makes sense that the most targeted party is the AfD for sure. Just like Donald Trump in the United States of America. Why did nobody try to kill somebody like Kamala Harris? That's because obviously she was not as much of a target, because she was not a threat to the system.
Yeah. I mean, you know, some people are saying, oh, well, I'm hearing that the reserve list includes thousands of people and this is no big deal. 71 years old, 66, 59. Like, this is all very, very common and, you know, common ages to die from natural causes. At 56, I feel like that's not too common.
No, exactly.
And I think the people are writing this off. I mean, do we know? Have we been able to correlate any of these deaths with death threats or weird and mysterious circumstances? Perhaps people walking up to someone at an event and sticking them with a syringe, which is one of the accounts that I read, and where this person might have fallen ill as a result of that. Like, that's not normal. That's not a natural cause for people to just to pop up and suddenly stick you with a syringe while you're walking down the street, is it?
Yeah, it's truly very strange. I have been trying to investigate a little bit. Of course, I want to remain as respectful as possible towards the circumstances and the families of these people. But the most important thing that we can do right now, which we are doing like myself and a couple of colleagues and friends, is we are calling for further investigations, and that should be happening. Because at least you should be allowed to ask questions, right? It's very weird that the legacy media and the government, they just shut it down as you are not allowed to ask any questions and you're just a conspiracy theorist. And it's actually disrespectful towards the victims. I don't think so. I think it might be crucial for us to, at the very least, investigate what's actually going on. Because here's a very good example that just took place a couple of days ago, basically. or like 2 weeks ago, maybe. A Ukrainian girl was pushed in front of a train, 16 years old. She was pushed in front of a train by a couple of migrants, Iraqi migrants, I believe. And they killed her. Horrible disaster, horrible murder. And what happened? The legacy media and the police, they reported this was an accident, but the family, they knew, her parents, they knew this could not be an accident because Liana, this girl, she called her grandpa literally the seconds before she died, and she was fearful, and she told him that there were these foreigners basically hunting her. And so eventually the parents of Liana, they went to the AfD party because they thought that's my last hope. Which is ironic because Liana and her parents, they were Ukrainian, and the AfD party, of course, they always accused him of being funded by Russia. But no, it was the AfD who then helped this family. And Bianca, ironically, once again, the guy who's constantly accused of being the most far-right Nazi in the AfD, he said, "We need to help this family." And he went out in public, and he spoke to the public about, "We need to investigate further." And so eventually the police investigated. And what do you think they found out? Well, it was murder, but they tried to gaslight the family. The legacy media, they reported, they tried to brainwash every single one of us. They said the AfD is already jumping to conclusions. This is a conspiracy theory. She was not killed. This is racism. It was not racism. And so maybe this time, in the case of these 7 AfD candidates suddenly dropping dead, maybe we have very good reasons why we want to investigate this case.
Well, one thing that stands out to me, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about strategically, like, why you would kill these 7 people, or, you know, try to make it look like they were killed in some capacity. Were these 7 locations, these 7 lokes in the election, pivotal in any kind of way to throw off sort of the National Party stance for the AfD party, giving them more of a majority? I'm trying to figure out exactly why strategically these 7, and maybe there's more to come, I don't know. But do we have any information on that yet? Are we still early days?
I guess it is still very early days. I do know about at least some of them, that they were currently running for office, and they were gaining a lot of votes. I think, like I said before, it would be unreasonable for anyone to, like, let's say from the establishment intelligence, I don't know, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but in all honesty, I know that our intelligence service is actively observing the AfD spying on us, committing house raids, spying on our phones, including myself. I have been involved with this myself. Even though I'm not even in the AfD, I know that there are lists of people, that the AfD's OB, not the FD intelligence service, Verfassung is currently observing, and I am one of these people. I found out about that. It's possible to find out. You can officially, like, file a request and ask them what kind of information they have gathered about you. And the interesting answer that I got is that they are still working on it. They have been working on giving me these details for months, because apparently it's so much that they've collected about me. And like I said, I know that the federal police have wiretapped my friends' phones at some points, and then listen in on my conversations as well. And it's crazy. It's very haunting to think about how they are spying on us and what they're doing to us, because I know a couple of people who used to live in East Germany under socialism, and they say this is worse. This is worse than what we've lived through in East Germany behind the Berlin Wall. Because right now the Berlin Wall has basically been extended, and we have this invisible wall all around Germany. And I even have, I have some colleagues, for example, the chief editor of the leading alternative media in Germany, Dutch, and Korea, the former interior minister. She went to Homeland Security in America and told them that he's a threat to democracy, so that they wouldn't give him a tourism visa or journalism visa to America under President Biden back then.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the credibility of the German government when it comes to suspicious attacks, because it's worth remembering that they participated in fabricating a totally crazy story about the poisoning of Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition, who was not really Putin's opposition. He was not popular in Russia. They said he was poisoned by Invichuk, even though no one around him ever wore protective gear, which you should if someone actually was exposed to that. They made up this crazy circumstance in order to go along with the American State Department's framing of this in order to vilify Putin. So now they are not making up suspicious circumstances, they are doing the opposite and ignoring suspicious circumstances. So even if the German government comes out and says anything, will we trust them? I guess I'm telling you I wouldn't. So what do you make of what would you do if they say anything?
If we get any official investigation, I don't care what the government says about anything. if there is some investigation that takes place, then I think it would be in all of our interests, including, like, the AfD. They would probably make sure that they can get full access to these files and what exactly they're investigating over there. I think it would be crucial for us to get very close insights into what's going on. So I want to keep pushing for an actual good investigation, where we have some form of control, or maybe the families at the very least of these victims, because yeah, as you mentioned before, the government has made some very questionable claims with no evidence behind it, especially usually with these Russian collusion allegations. There's also Peter Bonn, for example, from the AfD. They constantly accuse him of being bribed by Russia, and so they've already done 22 house raids at his home. Never found anything. Still keep claiming that he's funded by Russia. Why? Because he has the best international contacts, and so he's very influential within the AfD. They will keep trying. And I seriously fear that if they cannot manage to ban these AfD candidates that are running for office, for example, they just achieved the ban of a mayor candidate in Kaiserslautern, then maybe they will resort to different worlds and potentially even consider killing them silently. I would not be surprised.
Deeply and darkly. Naomi, thank you so much for this. Be safe. Thank you for this. Unbelievable. And we'll continue to put these pieces together. And please, if you have any big updates for us on these particular 7 candidates, and God hope we don't, there's not an 8th or a 9th, we'll be watching this closely. And please share your updates with us, and we'll have you back on